invite you to remain standing for our scripture reading. We'll be reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. Let's read God's good word together. So he set off and went to his father, but while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his slaves, "Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they began to celebrate. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. What do you think of when you hear the word home? When you think of home, what comes to mind? For me, I think of this place. That's where I grew up. It's in Norman, Oklahoma. It's a great place to grow up. And it didn't actually look like that most of the time. That's the photo whenever my mom listed it to sell. So particularly when I was in charge of the yard, like the edging was not quite that good. But anyway, that gives you the general idea. Actually, the basketball goal we had before that one was my favorite. But whenever you lower it down so that you can dunk on it and then hang too long, basketball goals don't last. But anyway, mostly that's where I grew up. But there's something about home, right? Just the particular place, particular people, just the sense that you get. And it's not just a location or a photo or a memory, but it's a feeling, a sense that we get. And as I was thinking about this week, I was thinking about just what makes a home. And so there are certain things that make a home what it is. It's more than a building, but it is connected to a particular place. It is connected to a particular place that may be a city, that may be a state. It could be a particular house or a particular piece of land, but it's connected to place. And whenever I think about my home growing up, I think about, I knew it so well. I knew the driveway and where the cracks were, so that whenever it rained, I knew where the puddles would be, right? Because that's where I would jump around and pretend like I was a frog whenever I was little. And I knew the best nap spot in the house. And I don't know why this was what it was, but for some reason, it was whenever you walk into the living room, and there was a couch in there, and the best nap spot was on the floor behind the couch. I don't know why. It was just something about the room. That was, if you needed a nap, that was just the best spot. And at least it was for the kids, and maybe not for my parents. But there are just these particular things that come to mind and that remind us of what it means to be home. There's something about a particular place. That may not even be the place where you slept at night, but there's something about these particular places. And of course, it's more than that. It's more than just a place. Home is also the people and the relationships that make us who we are, right? The people who we know who will meet us whenever we go there, and the relationships we have with them, that sense of bonding. And whenever those relationships are strong, it becomes a place of safety and security. We know, at least at its best, we know that if mom and dad are there, then I'm safe, that they'll take care of me. And it's a place where we know that we'll belong. I know, no matter what, I know that I belong here. That's what home's about. And it's where we're loved and where we're wanted, right? Where they actually want us to be there. And I love the way that Robert Frost puts it. He says, home is the place where when you have to go there, they have to take you in, right? They got to open the door, got to let you in. That's what home is. And so today we're looking at a story of leaving home. And it's a familiar one. We just read it for many of us, the story of the prodigal son, as it's commonly called. You might call it the story of the lost son, maybe even the lost sons. We'll get to that. But Jesus tells this parable of a young man who abandons his home and family. He decides he has a home and doesn't want that to be home anymore. And so this is what Jesus said. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. He was doing things that his mom and dad told him not to, right? That's kind of what that word is. But basically, he goes up to his dad and says, Dad, give me my inheritance ahead of time. And has anyone had that conversation? My mom's here. I've not asked her for my inheritance. I think she wants to have a place to live and to be able to eat in retirement, which seems fair enough, right? That's not something that most of us ask for, right? I mean, in a sense, that's almost saying, hey, I wish you were dead, but you're not. Can you go ahead and give me what will become mine anyway, right? And they were landowners, and so most likely, in order to give him that, it wasn't a matter of going to the bank. He probably had to sell their family land in order to be able to do that. And so made the entire family have less because he wanted that. And basically wanted to run off and create his own life, to be able to live the way he wanted to live, to do the things that he wanted to do that apparently were not in line with the way that he was raised, right? They were dissolute. And basically in running away from his family, the son left himself cut off. He cut himself off, said, this is not my home anymore. You're not my family anymore. I'm gone. I'm not coming back. And many of us, hopefully that's not been your experience. I mean, there are times that we do need to have a firm break in situations of abuse, but most of the time that's not the way that we want to relate to our family and to our home. We all go through phases, particularly in our teen years, where we do try to come up to have our own identity, right? And there is some distancing that happens there, but ideally it's not a complete break. Right? I mean, that's what we hope for. And yet that's what he did. That's the way that he chose. He decided, I don't want to be part of this family anymore. And he left. And things did not go well with him, despite his plans. Maybe predictably, like going to a place where you have no support system and doing whatever you want didn't work out. I mean, that's surprising that didn't work out, right? Like who could have seen this coming? And I wonder if the dad will let him know that. We'll see. But so when the younger son had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who set him off to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. Have you ever been in a situation where you've looked at what animals are eating and been jealous? I have not fallen that far, and that seems pretty rough to me. And particularly, in their culture, are pigs kosher? They are not. And so the pigs were unclean animals, not to be eaten. And so if you were going to eat what a pig was eating, that's pretty low. And so he's in a bad place, in a hard way, and just has nothing, and no one to count on, and just doesn't have anything. And it's a result of breaking with his family, of basically going out on his own and saying, I don't want to be in a relationship anymore. Now, hopefully we've not taken that path, but we all have these tendencies to break relationships. We all have these unhealthy ways of relating to others, and that's true however supportive your family of origin was. We all have ways of relating to others that are unhealthy. And in fact, sometimes we take the exact opposite, and it's like, I'm just going to go along with whatever they say, because if I disagree with them, I won't be part of the family anymore. And we have this kind of anxious attachment, like I have to go along with everything. And I think what you're doing is actually terrible, but I can't say anything because we don't do that, right? And it's almost the exact opposite. And so wherever you are on that spectrum, we all have these unhealthy ways of relating to others that even in the best situations, those things happen, right? And we also find ourselves in, sometimes because of that, and sometimes just because of the values of the society that we live in, that we come to a situation where we may have housing, but many of us feel like we have no place to belong. Or the places that we do belong, we don't quite feel at home there. And this is, if you've read anything in the last decade about the loneliness crisis, that, this is just epidemic all over the place. And the number of people who have no one that they could call if something happened in the middle of the night is just staggeringly high. And part of that comes out of just the way that we've set our priorities and the way that we're more and more isolated. This is what Stanford researcher Emma Seppala says. She says, the way we are prioritizing our life and what we are prioritizing often goes against our greatest need for belonging. Whether it's material goods or pleasures, right? Basically what the younger son was chasing. Whether it's financial advancement or social advancement, we are missing the point completely. Now, financial advancement and social advancement, those are the kind of things that look good, right? They're the things that you chase, and if you get them, people are like, wow, good on you, congratulations. And yet we can miss the point whenever we're chasing those things. We're not seeing that our greatest happiness comes from connection. whether from family or religious or social community, something greater than yourself, something transcendental. We're chasing after these things and striving after them and letting our relationships with other people basically get the short end of the stick. We got all this other stuff we got to do, have to accomplish all the things, have to make sure that we're doing everything we can, and the people that we care about, we'll get to them eventually, unless we don't. And I just wonder how much of that striving, that chasing after things, is a misguided attempt to create a place for ourselves in the world. Because we don't quite feel secure in the place that we have. We don't quite feel like we belong. We don't quite feel at home. And so I've got to build something. I've got to get it. And so we find ourselves just chasing after those things. And so eventually we come to a place where we want to find our way back. And that's where the son finds himself. He squanders his fortune. There's a famine. He's like, man, this livestock is doing better than I am. And he was desperate. And so this is what he said. It says he came to himself and said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. And so basically he's like, I can't be family anymore. Like, that ship has sailed. I've burned that bridge. That's not going to happen now. But at least he has food to eat. He can at least hire me, right? I can be one of his employees, because clearly I'm not good enough because of what I've done. I'm not good enough to be a son anymore. And how many of us have felt like we have to be good enough to be accepted? Right? You know that feeling if you've done something that's hurt someone, or you've fallen short, and you just think, yeah, there's no way they're going to accept me again. There's no way I can go back. There's no way that relationship will ever be what it was. And we have that sense, that longing, like we're just, that can never be. And so we settle, or we walk away, and that's what the son does. He says, basically, okay, I'm not going to try to be part of the family. I'm just going to try to be part of the staff, just at least however I can eat. But I know I'm not part of the family anymore. And yet that's not how his father saw it, right? You know this part. So he set off and went to his father, but while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But while the father saw him while he was still far off. And I wonder what must have been happening for him to be able to see that. I think that means that he was looking, right? I mean, at this point, it's probably been months. Travel's not particularly fast at that point in history. And so for him to have gone to another country and spent all his money, I mean, maybe it happened fast, but he's been gone for months at least. And yet there's still his father is still looking and saying, maybe today's the day. Maybe today's the day when my son will come back. And whenever he sees him coming, he doesn't just wait, right? He's not just okay, he'll get here whenever he gets here. He also doesn't get his own speech ready, right? I mean, you can imagine, he took our fortune, he spent it all. That's probably a third of his father's net worth. If you're the younger son, you got one part, and the oldest son got 2 parts, and all the older children are like, oh man, if I lived in that society. But that's how it worked. But you can imagine the speech that you would give, not because you wanted to give it, but for their own good, right? I mean, it's always for their own good. Or maybe he could have, you can also imagine him just giving his son the cold shoulder and just giving him the silent treatment, look who's back. And is that what he does? No. He doesn't walk out, he runs. He runs. He leaves dignity just to the side, and he gets to his father because he's so excited, because his dream has come true. And in fact, the son tries to give his speech. He has the speech prepared. Have you ever messed something up and you've figured out, okay, I've got a speech. You have the whole speech in your head. He can't even finish his speech. He might have been mad about that. Dad, I spent a long time coming up with this. Will you at least let me get through it? But his dad's already arranging the party. He's like, yeah, I know, you're sorry. Okay, go kill the fatted calf. We're going to have a party because he's come. The father says to his slaves, quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine, not like this man, not this person, this son of mine was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Despite everything, the father welcomed his wayward son back home, this son of mine. And they began to celebrate. Because the son decided he didn't want to be a part of his family anymore. He walked away from that relationship. He said, this is not my home. But to the father, it was always his home. He was always his son. He was just waiting. It wasn't, the son could walk away, but he couldn't choose not to be family anymore. And his father was ready. And that's how God sees us. And I love the way that David Kim puts it. He says, babies are born into belonging. They don't have to earn it. They have nothing to prove. They're beloved before they accomplish anything. And they thrive best in the confidence of that secure place. Right? No one has a baby and then like a few days in is like, this thing has already cost me thousands of dollars, right? This hospital bill that's going to be coming in the next 9 to 18 months eventually. And not only that, it has taken away my sleep. Like, I am not seeing any return on this investment. Does anyone say that? No. They are just amazed. Now, they do complain. I complained whenever I lost all my sleep. I still do whenever it happens. Because even at 10 and 4, we still have nights that where we don't sleep. But they are beloved simply because they are. Simply because they are. And that's how God sees us. God, in case you missed it, the Father it demonstrates the character of God in this story. And God sees us the same way. God loves us just because we are. Because God created us, and we are God's. And we see that particularly in Jesus, that before we could deserve it, God came to us to make a home with us. And Eugene Peterson in the Message puts it so beautifully. He says in John chapter 1, the Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. We saw the glory with our own eyes, the one-of-a-kind glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish. Not waiting until the neighborhood was worthy, right? Not until this was a good investment, but while we still didn't deserve it, while we are still far off, God comes to us. Isn't that beautiful? Because with God, we always have a home. We always have a home. We can run away, but we can always come back. Now, it would be great if we could just end the sermon there, right? Some of you are like, yeah, I could get to lunch early. I know, not quite done. But here's the interesting thing. If you look in the Bible at this story, we've only made it halfway through the parable. We're only halfway through. Because there's this older son, and we have to deal with him next. And if you're an oldest child or inhabit those kind of characteristics, I'm sorry, this part may be a little bit hard for you. I'm an oldest child as well, so I feel it. I get it. But the older brother, was he excited that his younger brother was home? He was not. He did not want to go throw a party. He reacted to his brother's reception with jealousy. And what does he do? Well, he becomes angry and refuses to go into the party. And so his father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, listen, for all these years I've been working like a slave for you, and I've never disobeyed your command. I bet the father could think of a few examples, but yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. And again, I wonder how much of that is like, whenever we're in a self-righteous kind of mood, we often miss a lot of things and overstate them. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him. Notice this son of yours, right, is not this brother of mine. As far as he's concerned, they're not brothers anymore. His brother does not have a place at home. And because he didn't want to share a home with an undeserving brother. And maybe you felt that way before. If you've done everything right, and then all of a sudden somebody else comes along and they do whatever they want, and they're rewarded. That's hard to take, right? I mean, we can be honest about that. It's still not easy whenever it happens. And yet that's what we see. And particularly in a culture that idolizes achievement, we believe we have to earn our right to belong. Right? I mean, who are the people that we look up to, that we model after, that we read their books and listen to their TED Talks? It's the high achievers, right? The people who started things, and particularly the people who know how to scale, who can achieve and accomplish and all those kinds of things. They're the people that we look up to, and we think we have to do the same kind of thing if we're going to have a place. And yet God doesn't ask us for that. God accepts us as we are. And that's the lesson that the older son has to learn. He's just as lost as his younger son. He just, how would we say it? Maybe he lives that out in a more pro-social way. He just works even harder. But he still doesn't know that he's home. He feels like he has to earn it. He has to earn his father's acceptance. And he's just as wrong about that as his younger brother was. And so this is what God invites us into. And one of the things that we see in this is that in making a home with us, God also expects us to welcome others, right? It's not just for us. It's not like we get to come in and then we close the door and lock it behind us. Like, okay, enough people are here. We're good. But God welcomes other people in as well. And just, if you think about this story, how much more beautiful would it be if the older brother had run out with the father and welcomed his brother home? Can you imagine? Unfortunately, Jesus knows how humans work, and so that's not how the story goes, right? I mean, because the older brother does what we do. And yet, God is creating a home where both brothers are welcome, where both of them have a place, where everyone is welcome, and he invites us to be the people who run out to welcome the next person who comes home, because we are part of the home of God. And in fact, that's really what we see throughout the scriptures, is that's kind of what connects it from Genesis to Revelation, is God creating a home. This is what Yale theologians Miroslav Volf and Ryan McAnally Lynn say. The story of everything is the story of God coming to dwell in and with human beings in the world. God creating a home here with us. We see that in Genesis, and God creating the garden and inviting the humans to live in it, and Jesus coming to us and creating a home with us. And we see it even at the end in Revelation. And God makes a home with us and invites us to become family. We've just spent 6 weeks learning about the life of the Apostle Paul, and really his entire ministry was about expanding the family of God. You know, you read through his letters and you see he's talking about faith and the law and circumcision. You're like, Paul, why is circumcision coming up so much? That's kind of weird. And it's because these two groups of people have been brought together, Gentiles, non-Jews, and Jews. And there are these particular markers of being part of a particular people. That's the food and dietary laws, the kosher laws, and circumcision in particular were markers of a particular people. And now that God had brought these two groups together, what Paul says is that those things are no longer necessary. But what his letter's really all about are about God creating a family and figuring out how to live together. Because it is complicated, right? I mean, whenever you welcome everyone, it's not like everyone just comes in and they all just get along, right? When people are really different, you've got to figure stuff out, right? I mean, that's how it is in families too. Are you and your siblings the same if you have siblings? Like, probably not. And sometimes those differences can be complicated, and you've got to figure them out. But whenever we do that work, we can be part of the family that God's creating. And so whether you relate to the older brother and you do everything right, or you relate to the younger brother and you ran off and went a little bit crazy and then came back home, what God says to you is welcome home. You have a place here. You belong here. And that's ultimately what God is doing in creation, and what all of us are looking forward to is whenever God creates a home with finality and all those broken pieces fall away and God heals them. This is what we read about in Revelation chapter 21. John writes, I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, see, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. That's what it tells us is what it will be like whenever God makes a home among mortals. And so God invites us not just to wait until then, like, okay, well, just bide your time, but God invites us to be part of that even now, to experience that even now. We won't experience it in its fullness, but we can taste that even now. And God invites us to be homemakers with God, people who help become part of making a home. And one of the things that we have to learn is that we are unconditionally accepted. And God has expectations about how we live together. A lot of times we want one of those, right? The younger brother was really hoping for the first part. Like, I hope I can be accepted. Actually, he didn't even dare to hope that. But we want that. And the older brother is like, yeah, and there are rules around this house. Like, one, no taking your inheritance early, right? And so there are particular things that God expects of us. The way that we live together matters. And particularly whenever we're welcoming diverse people, we've got to figure that out. But one of the things that we also recognize is that every family member has something to offer. And it may take some work for us to realize that. And some of us are great at cooking dinner. And I am not one of those people. But even if you can't cook dinner, you can take out the trash. right? There's a rule for everyone. Actually, if you are a part of this family of faith, you are welcome to take out the trash too. If you see a trash can on a Sunday or a Wednesday that is full, you don't have to tell one of the people in the gold name. Did you know you can take it out? You're welcome. You get to do that too. Y'all do not seem as excited as maybe I thought you might be, right? But that's what families do, right? We do the work. If we see something that needs to be done, we do it. And that's part of being family. Everyone has something to contribute. And sometimes it just means that if we don't see that, then that's our problem. We have to learn to identify those things. But it takes work, and it takes preparation. And I think part of the reason the older brother couldn't welcome his brother home was because he hadn't prepared. He hadn't done the work of forgiveness, which, I mean, I get it. I would be mad too. And so if you spend months or even years nursing a grudge, you're not going to be able to say welcome. And so it takes work. For us to be able to welcome people, for us to be able to be family with people, it takes work, and we have to be willing to do that. We have to do the work of addressing our own wounds and our coping strategies. Because it's pretty obvious, like the younger brother, his issues are pretty obvious, right? He could not hide those at the point that he ran home in the story. The older brother could hide his, right? His looked like being, the good, strong member of the family, the one who was always dependable. And he had to address those too. And yet whenever we do, whenever we can set those things aside, whenever we can allow God to heal them, whenever we can admit that we need help, that's when God can heal us. And we can be a part of creating the home of God and welcoming others in. And so if you're someone who always felt like you had a home, you felt like you've belonged, then you maybe, just maybe, you need to know that it's okay for other people to come in too. And what God says to you is you're welcome here too. And welcoming them doesn't mean you aren't welcome anymore. There's enough room for everyone. And if you feel like you don't have a home, like you don't have anywhere that you can belong, God says you have a home. You've always had one. Because that's what God wants to say to all of us is welcome home. Welcome home. So here are a few action steps I want to invite you to take this week as we seek to live this out. First, whenever you feel that kind of sense, that longing for home, I think all of us feel that in some way or at some time, and we try to cover it with something else, right? I mean, that whole quote about all the different things, social achievement or finances or pleasure, all those ways. Whenever you feel that, don't numb it or avoid it. Invite God into it. Invite God into it. God, I feel like something is missing and I don't exactly know what, but I'm not going to try to fill it with something else. Come into that space. Come into my heart. Fill that place that only you can fill. Invite God into it. Don't numb it. Don't avoid it. Don't distract yourself. I know it's easy. I know it's tempting, but invite God into it. And then next week, we're going to start a new sermon series, and so I want to invite you to step into life together with your church family starting next Sunday. Michael will tell you more about this in a few moments, but we're going to be entering into a new sermon series where we're going to really be doing the kind of work where we take a deep look at the places in ourselves that are broken and how we can invite God into that healing process. And so I want to invite you to do that work, to show up and to allow God to do the things. Don't be an older brother. I guess don't be a younger brother, at least at the beginning. But show up and allow God to do the work that God needs to do so that you can be a part of the home that God is creating, where you're always welcome. All you have to do is show up.